San Diego Global Knowledge University. Dr. Caroline Cardenas, SDGKU Advising and Counseling Services Coordinator. Present this seminar to explore acute distress and vital suicide prevention strategies.
There we are. Okay, I figured it out. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so my name is Caroline Cardenas, and I'm here to talk about mental health in the workplace, acute distress, and suicide prevention strategies. And we're going to go into some interesting concepts that I'm going to try and simplify so that we can get into what suicide is and strategies around suicide prevention and whatnot. But we really have to have a stronger foundation as to what stress is, what acute distress is, and what are things that can lead to suicide and how to prevent that. So we'll be going through, let me see if I can, there we go. We'll be going through 4 best practices to amplify connection in the virtual space. We'll review Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We'll explore the concept and significance of mental health, explore what's called the triune brain, review sympathetic versus sympathetic mode, explore reactivity versus responsiveness, review affects and co-regulation. We'll go through defining stress and distress. We'll discuss a little bit about human suffering. We'll talk about suicidal ideation, suicide facts in the US, warning signs, how to prevent suicide, also some important phone numbers for safety and resources for suicide prevention. And then we'll discuss the concept of presence, empathy, compassion, courage, and hope. And we'll offer a moment of reflection. Let's see here. Okay, so, sorry about that. There we are. So I want to first start off with looking at the technology and social engagement aspect. So technology, the video conferencing is a powerful technological tool that allows us to connect at distances. And I remember Dr. Cardenas telling the story when the internet connected in UCLA back in, I think it was the 1980s or 70s. And he, knew that people were going to be able to connect at a distance. And thus this idea about online education was a seed that was planted in his heart. And so something to think about here is that although we can connect remotely, and that gives us a lot of options around safety, in particular around a pandemic, and also with our busy lives and the families that we have, it can never replace physical human connection. So I always tell my 4-year-old that technology is a tool, it's not a toy, right? We can sort of kind of get really embedded in it and it can really suck us in. One of the challenges of technology is that the heart has its own electromagnetic field around it and its own nervous system, believe it or not. And as you can see in this image here, you can see sort of this field that's created around the heart. And the technological space inhibits sensing this field. We also have a magnetic field around planet Earth. Neuroscientist Dr. Stephen Porges, who developed polyvagal theory, which explores the importance of social engagement. He's brilliantly shown that the neural circuitry of social engagement and love is intricately connected with the heart and its functions. So I don't know about you, but when you are in the physical space of another human being, you can tend to sense more about maybe how they're feeling and what's going on with them. Whereas when we're in this 2-dimensional space, this sort of flat technological space, it's a bit harder to sense how people are feeling and where they're at. So it gives us an opportunity here at this moment to really think about imagining ways to amplify connection in this 2-dimensional space. And that way we can create more authentic and meaningful connection that is so important for what we're going to discuss on into this seminar, which is co-regulation. And I want to emphasize that this is a seminar and not a lecture. And the difference between a lecture and a seminar is that lecture, I'd be speaking at you or to you. And in a seminar, I am speaking with you. So right now, this is a sort of a virtual circle that we're creating. And I want to go over what something that I developed here on best practices to amplify connection through technology. It first starts off with presence. Are you present? Is your camera on? Is it off? Now, if your camera is off because you're driving, great. We want you to be safe. We don't want you, to be getting in a particular, we don't want you to be unsafe. But it's really, really important that when we are creating this virtual circle, that we try to imagine what it's like to be the presenter, right? In presenting information and what the presenter might need, right? The presenter might need to see you and also sense if you're engaged in the lecture. Also, what's your intention? What is your goal in thought and behavior when you come to these meetings, when you come to these seminars, and when you are teaching your classes? Your interaction. Are you willing to be affected and engage? Sometimes we wear armor at work to survive. Armor is different than a boundary. Armor keeps us distant from connecting to people. And it is kind of a survival mode that we can tend to put on unconsciously, not recognize. And what's important is to create healthy boundaries, to create more of a balance rather than putting on more armor that further distances us from human connection. And then the last one that really goes around all of presence, intention, interaction is quality. How are you showing up for yourself and the group, and what is your attitude? And I want to congratulate San Diego Global Knowledge University and everyone that participated in obtaining accreditation with the EAC. And I remember both Dr. Cardenas Jr. and Dr. Cardenas Sr. talking about the first presenting that poem on attitude, and then also talking about SDGKU 1.0, SDGKU 2.0, and then SDGKU 3.0 and where we're going. And the quality piece is really up to every single one of us and how we're showing up. And if we're present, if we're checking in our intention, our interaction, and our attitude, that's going to help with our connection, especially when we're connecting at a distance. So right now, I'd like to encourage you to notice where you are in your mind and in your body. Are you multitasking at this moment? Can you stop what you're doing, turn all the bells and whistles off of your phone and everything else, and can you be present in this moment with us? We're creating this virtual circle, and it's really important that we think about how we're showing up, how we're feeling in our mind and in our body, how we're feeling physically and mentally at this moment. And I want to invite you to close your eyes and listen to this poem that I'm going to express to you, and notice how it affects you. For presence, awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. Have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. Receive encouragement when new frontiers beckon. Respond to the call of your gift and the courage to follow its path. May warmth of heart keep your presence aflame. May anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of soul. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder. And that's by John O'Donohue. And as you take a deep breath and begin to gently open your eyes, I want to bring you to noticing how you're feeling in your body, in your mind. I want to invite you, if you can, to turn on your camera so that we can see your faces. And then invite you to this very moment of presence. This time is going to go by very, very fast. And so really beginning our practices and engaging in presence is a powerful thing that we can do in co-regulating other human beings. So as we move forward in talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we notice that at the bottom, we have these, as human beings, these basic physical needs. We need to eat food, we need water, we need shelter, we need clothing, we need to sleep, we need to eliminate. These are basic physiological needs that we all need to survive. And as we move on to the next tier, we move on to safety and security. Are we healthy? Do we have employment? Is our property safe? How about our family? And what about our social stability? The next tier would be then love and belonging, our social connection, friendship, family, intimacy. Then we move on to the next tier, which is self-esteem, that sense of confidence, achievement, respect of others, the need to be a unique individual in this world. And then as we get to the tippy top, we can't get to the tippy top if all of those others that are below it needs have been met. And that tippy top is that self-actualization of morality, creativity, spontaneity, acceptance, experiencing purpose and a sense of meaning in your own inner potential and that gift that you carry in this world. So what is mental health? So according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make healthy choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life from birth to death. When we think of the stages of life, we think of childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. But I want to encourage you to think about mental health being a lot more than just mental. We're not just walking heads. We have a whole body below the head that it also carries a lot of memory around our childhood and adolescence and into our adulthood. And this word, mental, overly focuses on cognition. So instead of mental health, we could say we're moving towards wholeness. And it's dynamic, it's fluid. So why is mental health important? Mental and physical health are equally important components of overall health. Acute and chronic conditions of any of these components of our human experience can affect our mental health and sense of overall well-being. And if you look here, well-being is right at the center. We've got our emotional, we've got our physical, psychological, and social. If I'm not getting along with a friend, I might be feeling a bit, upset about that particular relationship. Maybe I'm, feeling sad at this moment, or today I woke up feeling sad. Or perhaps I'm dealing with physical pain, or maybe a chronic condition that others can't see. All of this is an important aspect of our well-being. And it's not just some of us, it's all of us. So who does it affect? Well, I just said it affects everyone. And research suggests, and this is something that's really, really important to remember throughout this seminar, is that most human brains take about 25 to 30 years to develop. Though these rates can vary among men and women and among individuals. We place a lot of emphasis in our culture and in our society to focus on the development of children and adolescents. And that when we get to adulthood, we have to become responsible, we have to get a full-time job, we have to have families, and, we need to be serious. And, legally, we're adults at age 18 in the United States. At, age 18, you can vote, and at age 21, you legally can buy alcohol. But you notice that our brains are still developing from age 25 to age 30. And the reason why I mention this is something that's really important when we talk about reactivity versus responsiveness. So I want to talk a little bit about the three-parted brain. This is also called the triune brain. At the base of the brain, or the reptilian brain, or the lizard brain, is the brainstem or the cerebellum, and that's the autopilot. That one is based on our survival. When children are exposed to trauma and too much trauma throughout their childhood, their lower part of their brain tends to be much larger than the middle part of their brain and the upper part of their brain. If you notice here, the mammalian brain, which is the limbic system, that's the second area, where we move higher up from the basic of, the lizard brain, which has our respiratory, our heart rate. It has, our basic ways of being able to survive in the world, because we are programmed to survive in the world and to procreate. The second level is the mammalian brain, or the limbic, and that's for our emotions, our memories, our habits, and our attachments. And we all have a different experience in our attachments and our development. Some of us had mothers and fathers. Some of us had caregivers in our attachments. Some of those attachments were very close, and some of them were maybe not so close. So dependent upon our attachments, this mammalian part of our brain, or that second level, the limbic system, can be higher functioning. And then when we move on to the human brain, or the neocortex brain, we also call this the paleomammalian brain. This is where language, abstract thought, imagination, consciousness, reasoning, and rationalization can occur. So if I'm speaking to an adult who in their childhood was exposed to an enormous amount of trauma, the base of their brain, as a psychologist, I know that the base of their brain is probably much more developed than their limbic system brain, the middle part of their brain, and their higher functioning brain, which is, the paleomammalian brain, or the human brain, the neocortex, where they can engage in abstract thought. So for me, as an advisor, a counselor, as a psychologist, as a nurse, it's really important for me to understand where people are, in terms of their ability to understand the world, and which parts of their brain perhaps are more developed. I can't engage in abstract thought with a person who's had an enormous amount of trauma throughout their life. I have to really keep things basic and simple. So this brings me to the conversation around how do I get back to that other one? Whoops. Well, it was on responsiveness and reactivity. There we go. Reactivity versus responsiveness. So reactivity is designed to increase comfort in the very short term. A reaction seeks to soothe discomfort without involving the intellect. So it's the reptilian part of the brain. It's quick in nature, and it's designed for our survival. And it has the potential to be destructive. Responsiveness is a different quality. It's slow in nature. It's not rushed. It's wise. It's intelligent. It's thoughtful and productive. It takes its time. It considers the ultimate outcome from a course of action. It lacks aggressiveness and targets the best outcome. Constructive and solution-oriented seeking to improve the situation, and engages reflexive capability. So if I were in a stressful situation where I needed to react for my own safety, that would be appropriate. But if I was in, let's say, a situation where I was at work and, let's say, for example, reactivity, if I'm in a parking lot as a woman and somebody is coming towards me to maybe take my purse, I'm going to be reactive for my survival. But if I'm at work and I'm stressed out and, about maybe family life and work life, and I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, I'm going to take a moment to reflect. This is going to engage my higher part of my brain. And I'm going to take a time to really reflect on how can I respond to this maybe challenging moment in a way that brings in the kind of quality that isn't aggressive, that is inclusive, that is gentle in nature, so that it brings about the greatest outcome. So reactivity and responsiveness really have different qualities. One of the things that I want you to understand here is that everybody can be reactive. That's basic in nature. It's part of the base of our brain. It takes work and practice to be responsive. And I think those of us who are mothers and fathers, we can see that in, parenting. When we're reactive, we feel guilty, and shameful. Oh gosh, I should have maybe not have gotten upset, or I should have taken a moment. But when we're responsive, we feel like we're doing the right thing in parenting our child to be a great individual in society. So stress versus distress. Stress is how your body responds to pressures or tensions. We have good stress or eustress, and then we have bad stressors in the world. Stress can cause feelings of uneasiness, anxiety, frustration, nervousness, fearfulness, and even helplessness. And when stressed, one could experience changes in sleep, appetite, energy level. And also feeling stressed is normal, especially when experiencing life changes. So like when one gets married, that can be a stressful event. Buying a new home can be a stressful event. Moving can be a stressful event if that's desired or not desired. And, you know, a death in the family, a change in physical or mental health, that can all bring on stress. Distress is an adversive negative state in which coping and adaptation process fail to return an individual to physiological and or psychological homeostasis. And homeostasis is just a big fancy word for balance. Our body's always working towards a balance, even without us thinking about it. Distress also, if it's severe or prolonged, or multiple cumulative stressor insults, can have deleterious or negative effects on a person's welfare and can progress into maladaptive states. I think some of us can see this happening in maybe downtown San Diego when we see that inflation is high, it's expensive to, you know, pay rent and, you know, mortgages. People are having a hard time finding a place to live. You know, the cumulative effects of the pandemic and isolation. And then we see that people are struggling to have housing. People are dealing with mental health issues. And it, you know, and we can see that just walking down the street. So what are affects? And I put some photos here for us to kind of get these images of, well, our affects are innate biological responses to the increasing, decreasing, or persistent firing of neurons in our brain. It's for our survival. And it gives us a physiological response. It's expressed through the face mostly and through the body. And the affects are either rewarding or punishing. And they give us a sense of urgency to act. So we have 9 basic affects, and they are, again, part of the base of the brain, and they are for our survival. And we can recognize them here. Fear, you know, disgust, shame, shoulders down, head down, hands in the face. It's something to note here, shame is and humiliation is actually one of the, it's a punishing affect, and it's one of the basic affects that we as human beings try to avoid to experience. Shame is a very painful affect to experience, and there is a way through shame, but that's something that we try to do to avoid in our lived experience. We have distress, and we can see the child in the middle of there that looks sad, and he looks like he needs connection, he needs co-regulation, right? Then we have surprise or startle. We have interest, excitement, like, oh, that's interesting. And then we have joy, which is a smile on the face. And that beauty of joy really brings in that feeling of safety and authentic connection. Then we also have rage or anger. You know, when we see somebody that just looks like they're just about to blow, you know, we have clenched fists, we have a furrow in the brow, you know, so these basic affects help us see in others what they might be feeling. Now, sometimes we try to mask those affects because we don't want others to know how we're feeling. So parasympathetic versus sympathetic mode. We've got our nervous system response to toxic stress. And then we have the parasympathetic mode, which is rest and digest. And then we have the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight, flight, or freeze. At the bottom here, we see in green social engagement. That's where we feel connection, safety, we feel grounded, we have a sense of curiosity, we can expand into empathy and compassion, and that's where presence comes into play as well. The social engagement part is really connected to our eyes in seeing, and also, our tone of voice. social engagement is also connected very much to this aspect of sort of, when we're looking at a baby and we're saying, there, everything's going to be okay. When the arousal increases, we can go into anxiety, fear, worry, concern, irritation, anger, frustration, and rage. And that brings us into the fight or flight mode. Our pupils dilate to allow more light in. Our muscles begin to engage. We feel the sense of threat. A sense of threat could be a car coming at you. It could be an email. It could be a thought. There are various forms of threat that we can have in the mind. It can either be actually happening, or it could be a particular worry or concern that can bring us into that fight or flight stage. And then we have the freeze stage, where sort of the body is designed to kind of pretend like it's dead, right? So if a saber-toothed tiger was coming at us, we would, engage the large muscles to run away from it or fight it off, right? But if we weren't able to do that, if we felt trapped or shut down, or an inability to fight off this saber-toothed tiger, we would freeze and pretend like we're dead. These are all basic survival things, and that can come in through shame, dissociation, loss of energy, feeling of helplessness, depression, feeling shut down, where you just feel stuck. So human suffering. So suffering is what a person perceives as impending destruction extending beyond the physical. It's connected to an experience that threatens a person's sense of wholeness. There are various forms of suffering. You can think about the physical. There could be physical pain. There could be changes in one's, health that can bring on pain in various areas of their body. You can have psychological suffering, feelings of distress, worrying about a family member's health, worrying about one's own, where one is going to live. How about the state of the world? We have our iPhones, we have connection to the news at any moment, and we can see what's happening globally. And we can see suffering at any moment in time. We have access to it all the time, and that can cause a level of distress and bring us really out of our center. We can have emotional abuse that we've either experienced in our childhood or even in current relationships. Social isolation brings on human suffering, actually. Mother Teresa was quoted in saying that one of the worst forms of human suffering is isolation. We can have an experience of poverty, and then trauma, forms of abuse. I want to note here that, suffering, there are some beliefs that suffering is life, but I want to sort of challenge that notion that suffering is not life. However, suffering is a part of the lived experience. We're not going to really get through the lived experience without experiencing some form of human suffering. But something to note here is that there are avoidable forms of suffering and unavoidable forms of suffering, and we can reflect on what some of those avoidable and unavoidable forms of suffering. One of the unavoidable forms of suffering was, that we can all relate to is, the Holocaust. That was an avoidable form of suffering. An unavoidable form of suffering, I guess would be, maybe like childbearing. We women would experience, physical suffering in order to bring a child into this world. So those are sort of unavoidable, that we try to bring down that suffering. So let's talk about suicide facts. So suicide is the leading cause of death in the United States. It is death caused by injuring oneself with intent to die. A suicide attempt is when someone harms themselves with any intent to end their life, but they do not die as a result of their actions. Suicide is connected to other forms of injury and violence. Examples include people who have experienced any form of violence throughout their life or are currently experiencing that, child abuse, bullying, or sexual violence, We often hear stories, really tragic stories about adolescents that have been bullied at school, who died by suicide, and that is incredibly tragic. But that's the horrors of what bullying can do to an underdeveloped brain in an adolescent and their reactivity because they're feeling distressed and overwhelmed. Protection against suicide include being connected to family and community support and access to health. Healthcare can decrease suicidal thoughts and behavior. Suicide rates vary by race, ethnicity, age, and other factors such as geographical locations where a person lives. Suicide rate is highest in non-Hispanic American, Indian, Alaska Native, and non-Hispanic white populations. Other Americans with higher than average rates of suicide are veterans. And I think that's something that's really important to note, especially when here at San Diego Global Knowledge University, we have a large veteran population student, and they have gone to war. They have witnessed a lot of tragedy, and they themselves have experienced some form of trauma, and are experiencing maybe even challenges in their mental health. And so it's really, really important to recognize that our veteran population are also at risk for potential suicide. And then also certain industries and occupations like mining and construction. Young people who identify as lesbian, gay, or bisexual have higher rates of suicidal thoughts and behavior compared to their peers who identify as heterosexual. Suicide and suicide attempts have significant emotional, physical, and economic impacts, not just on families, but also in communities. It's not just the person or the immediate family that it affects, it really affects everyone. I think, anytime I hear a person who's died by suicide, you can't change that. There's no stopping it. It's happened already. And there is a domino effect in how that affects everyone that survives that. Suicide attempts can leave the survivor serious injuries that have a long-term effect on their health, along with depression and other mental health concerns. So, for example, if a person attempted suicide by taking pills like Tylenol or something, or maybe cutting themselves, and they survive that, that can have long-term chronic effects on their kidneys, their liver, and other areas in the body, depending on, like, if it was a gunshot wound to the head or to the chest, that can leave a lot of chronic issues in terms of their, being able to have quality of life throughout their life. Unfortunately, 90% of people who attempt suicide and survive never go to die by suicide. So, Suicide Prevention Resources for Action. This is a really important phone number, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Remember, suicide is preventable. Oftentimes we can feel like we had no idea that this person was experiencing suicidal ideation, or I didn't feel like I can do anything. But everyone has a role to play to save lives and contribute to the well-being, health, and strong individuals, families, and communities. And this is that place again that I'm talking about our sense of presence and our intention and our interaction and our quality. All of that plays an important factor in our ability to attune or co-regulate with another human being. We also have the Center for Disease and Control developed the Suicide Prevention Resources for Action online, which provides the best available evidence for suicide prevention. And it's linked here. So, warning signs for suicide. Giving away important possessions, talking about wanting to die, talking about feeling trapped, talking about death often, saying goodbye to family and friends, withdrawing from friends and family, so isolation, feeling unbearable emotion or physical pain, talking about being a burden to others, and taking great risks that could lead to death. And adolescents are usually ones or early adult or people in early adulthood that take great risks, like bungee jumping or things like doing things that can lead to death. Are populations that take great risks. And then also talking about feeling empty or hopeless. I think one of the most painful human feelings that I have ever witnessed in my nursing profession is despair or hopelessness, because that person is not anchored into a desire to hope for something good that keeps them connected to living. It's a very sad thing to witness in human beings. So here are some 5 action steps for helping someone that is experiencing emotional pain. The National Institute of Mental Health says, ask, are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Keep them safe. Stay with them. Reduce access to lethal items that are in place. If you think that they're going to, participate in potentially harming themselves, there are some things that you can do in making sure there aren't things around the house or in their vicinity to keep them safe. Be present with them. I don't know about you, but I can tell when a person is being present and not. I also can sense whether people are really connecting with me authentically. And it really makes a difference, because the reality is that each and every one of us wants to be seen, heard, and acknowledged. And each and every one of us wants to belong. And so being there for people and listening to them carefully and acknowledging their feelings is really, really powerful. And it also creates that sense of attunement. Help them connect. You can call or text the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline number, and then stay connected with them. Check in with them. When I have a friend that's going through something personal, I text them, hey, how's it going today? Or I give them a call, hey, I was thinking about you. How are you doing? This aspect of I'm too busy or I can't be bothered by other people's problems, I think it makes a big difference when another person recognizes that, oh my gosh, I matter to you, to the point where you paused what you were doing and you checked in on me. That actually goes a long way. So what to do if someone is suicidal? It's important to create a safe work culture so people can openly talk about their mental health and seek help. Mental health has a social stigma. And I think we can do our part, every single one of us, to really break down those walls of that social stigma, and really talking about that mental health really affects all of us at different stages of our lives, depending on what's happening in our lives. It's a normal lived experience, and that seeking help is something that we all deserve. If a person is exhibiting signs of suicidal ideation and it is safe, stay with them. Don't leave them alone. Authentic connection by providing presence, empathy, and compassion can help save lives. And remember, suicide is never the answer to moments of stress or distress. And there's always, always help. So I created this, this bubble here that again brings this aspect of presence. And I'm asking you now at this point in our seminar is, are you present? When we talk about suicide, when we talk about human suffering, and when we talk about distress, it can be distressing to think about these things. And we can sort of kind of go, oh my gosh, I'm starting to feel a little bit overwhelmed with this information. I need to check out. But I invite you to come back so that we can help co-regulate one another in this two-dimensional space where we can see each other's faces. And also, we are going to have a moment here. We're going to be able to hear each other's tone of voice to bring in this aspect of empathy. And what is empathy? Empathy is I am imagining what you are experiencing. A lack of empathy in this world is a world full of indifference, a world that is dangerous, actually. I don't have any empathy for you. I'm not imagining what you're experiencing. In fact, I'm going to objectify you. You don't matter to me. Your health, your well-being, your safety is of no importance to me. That is a lack of empathy, and we usually actually tie that into sociopaths. Compassion. What is compassion? Compassion is, I am imagining what you're experiencing, and it actually means to co-suffer, to suffer together, to be with the suffering. And there is an action, there's a feeling of wanting to soothe one's suffering in some sort of action. And then we have this aspect of authentic human connection. I don't know about you, but when somebody says, oh, that sounds really hard. Well, that's too bad. Okay, well, good luck with that. I don't know if you can tell, but my tone kind of expresses a lack of empathy and compassion. My tone expresses this lack of connection. So that authentic human connection brings us into this aspect of co-regulation. And something that I really want to emphasize here is that we come into this world through another human body. We come connected to an umbilical cord. As babies, we rely 100% on another human being to make sure that we are warm, that we are fed, that we are dry, and that we are loved. That doesn't stop in our childhood. That doesn't stop in our adolescence. We need this kind of co-regulation throughout our life on into the death and dying process. So how to cope with stress? Take 5. Take a moment, stand up, step away from the computer, stretch your arms up, yawn, move your body a little bit, move your face, your mouth. We can tend to get this like sort of computer position, move your shoulders, move your body a little bit. Take a few deep breaths, take 5 minutes. And that can make a big difference in really shifting your mood. I actually just recently got a trampoline, and the trampoline is actually really good for your nervous system. And it's been really good for me in between, the seminars and teaching, is to just kind of get on the trampoline for about 5 minutes. Trampoline just kind of brings me back into my body, gets me out of my head, and it helps to regulate my nervous system. And you really can't be in a bad mood on the trampoline. Be active, take a walk, be playful, throw a ball to somebody else, play cards, maybe jump rope, roller skate, skateboard, whatever it is that you like to do as a child that you still find wonder in. I encourage you to do that. That helps to calm your nervous system, and it engages your basic aspect of joy, which is essential for your well-being. Connect with others. We need to co-regulate, call a friend, call a family member. Develop a healthy routine that includes rest. When we rest well, our body is repairing and our brain is repairing itself as well. And that way we can come fresh to the next day and engage in that body and movement, play, and healthy eating. I don't know about you, but when I eat foods that aren't healthy, I actually don't feel well psychologically and emotionally. So really making healthy choices around our food and making sure we're drinking plenty of water, especially now since it's hot everywhere. And then seek support from friends and family and trusted organizations. I am a part of a support group for parenting. I have a 4-year-old. My 4-year-old didn't come with instructions. I want to be the best parent ever. And that encouraged me to be part of a support group that is evidence-based. And that allows me to learn and also engage with other parents that are going through hard things and how we can learn to be better parents. So that's one type of organization or trusted organization that I'm engaging in. So, just to note here, we have some important phone numbers at SDGKU, that we have the San Diego Police, we have counselor and advisors, myself, the phone number here to contact Monday through Friday if there's any support, any stress or distress that's happening. We also have the U.S. National Suicide Prevention Hotline, and then also that 988 suicide prevention phone number. Then we've got the resources, again, the emergency phone numbers, the alcohol and drugs, sexual assault. The Veterans Crisis Hotline is important for those of you in the full stack development, those are you that professors, to have available and to encourage your veterans if they are experiencing any level of distress, that they do have this Veterans Crisis Hotline number that they can reach out to. And then, of course, online, we have suicide prevention resources for action. So I love Dr. Maya Angelou. She is one of my favorite of all time. And she says, I'm convinced that courage is the most important of all virtues. Because without courage, you cannot practice any other virtue consistently. You can be kind for a while, you can be generous for a while, you can be just for a while, or merciful for a while, even loving for a while. But it is only with courage that you can be persistently and insistently kind and generous and fair. And courage is defined as a choice and a willingness to confront agony, pain, danger, uncertainty, or intimidation. The root of the word courage is cor, the Latin word for heart or corazón. And it means to have heart. So it's really, really important here that we recognize that when we are seeing somebody in distress, that number one, that we think about our own safety, okay? Because we're not going to engage somebody in the street who's experiencing distress that might have a mental health disorder and put ourselves in harm's way. But if we have a friend that's experiencing distress and we're not sure, we think we don't know what it's going to say something wrong, or, I don't know, or I don't want to get into their problems, or, I got my own problems. It's like to have courage to say, how are you? Are you okay? That takes courage. And just to remember that your sense of presence, your empathy, your compassion, that authentic connection attunes them. And it serves as a co-regulator. It brings down their nervous system. They see your eyes, your face, they hear your tone of voice that engages the vagus nerve that goes into our heart and our lungs. And that brings in that social engagement, and it allows us to calm down. So that in and of itself is actually quite powerful. When we are in this two-dimensional space, we have to probably be a little bit more animated, because if somebody was telling me they're distressed and I just keep a face like this, the other person is going to be a little confused of whether or not it's landing. They're going to be confused as to whether or not I'm listening. If I'm looking around while they're talking and I'm doing this and I'm laughing, they're going to think, oh my gosh, they're not listening to me. That's distracting. It's not attuning. So listening with your whole body, yes, it takes time, but it's important that we make time for one another so that we build trust with each other in our relating. And also that fosters trust in the group and then ultimately in the institution. And I don't know about you, but I want to work in an institution where I feel a sense of trust and safety. But we all have, it is dependent upon each and every one of us and how we're showing up. So I'm thinking about SDGKU 3.0, our attitudes, that quality piece. I'm Puerto Rican, so I talk a lot with my hands and I move my body and I'm really animated. So how I'm feeling. And that emphasis in this two-dimensional space, I think really adds to connection, I hope. I hope. So now that we're talking about hope, that segues into hope is to cherish a desire with anticipation, to want something to happen or be true. And when a person is feeling distressed, we want them to have an anchor into hope. We never want them to move into a sense of hopelessness, because that moves them further into not wanting to exist, not wanting to be here. And that is a tragedy. Hope is future oriented. It has positive expectation. It has intentionality. It has activity. It has realism, goal setting, interconnectedness. So, maybe someone would say, because I'm a cancer nurse and I'm also an end of life nurse, so I help people die well, because we're not getting through life without experiencing death and dying. So then how does one have hope when they're diagnosed with cancer? Or how does one have hope when they're diagnosed with a chronic condition? Or how does one have hope when they're dying? We can engage in imagination and in creativity in hoping to not suffer, hoping to connect with our loved ones, hoping to reconcile relationships, hoping to show up in a more expanded way in the short time that we have left in life. That's how we can change how hope can be and define hope for ourselves. And so I invite you again to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and listen to these words by Khalil Gibran. In the depths of our hopes and desires lies your silent knowledge of the beyond. And like seeds dreaming beneath the snow, your heart dreams of spring. Trust the dreams, for in them, hidden the gate of eternity. Trust the dreams, for in them is hidden the gate to eternity. And that's by Khalil Gibran. So as we open back our eyes and re-engage with one another here in listening to all of this information, in summary, heavy workload, immense pressure, toxic environment, and the threat of uncertainty can result in acute distress, leaving individuals vulnerable to feelings of despair. Creating safe culture full of support and understanding allows for individuals, groups, and institutions to develop fortitude. Another word for fortitude is courage, to foster hope and cultivate a more fulfilling and balanced life where we're anchored into that sense of meaning and purpose that we have contributed to something good in this world. And that's really, really important in our day-to-day lives, because otherwise we're just sort of kind of these machines, effective, productive, efficient. And that is a recipe for burnout and compassion fatigue when we're witnessing so much suffering in the world. I want to live a more balanced life, and that's going to require me to have courage around the hard things. And I know that what anchors me is connecting with my friends and family and being playful and connecting here with all of you. So I want to invite all of you at this moment, because again, I talked about the difference between a lecture and a seminar, is that I'm not speaking at you. I'm speaking with you. If you see this circle here, we've created this virtual circle, and that this aspect of technology has allowed us to connect, but how we connect in that sense of quality and all of that virtual circle that we're creating is an essential aspect to co-regulation. And when we're co-regulated as a team, then we can bring that forward to our students as well. And as we model that for our students, then our students can model that in their family systems as well, and their friends and in their communities. So I want to invite you, as we come to let me stop the screen share. So what practice anchors you into feeling hopeful? So I want to come back to all of you here. For those of you who are off camera, I really, really want to encourage you, if it's safe, and I know that Melly can't right now, so that's okay. If it's safe and it's appropriate, I really encourage you to come on camera so that we can see your eyes, your face. And we're going to have a moment here to share in our circle, because we do really need to hear each other's voices. That's an essential aspect to learning more about one another and also creating more of a trusting field. So that's Lydia and Yesenia and Beatriz. If you're able to, if you can't, I understand. For anyone who needs to leave soon, I want to encourage you to go first. Okay? Because don't wait till the last minute and be like, okay, I'm going to wait. And then I got to go. And then I'm going to go in the text box and say, I got to go. I can't. And then you don't have to share. But I really like for everybody to have an opportunity to share. What anchors you into a sense of feeling hope? And come off of mute, please. Whoever's ready. Looks like Aaron or Aaron.
Yes. For me, it's art really. Drawing, I think, is the most specific, but just kind of that creativity. I feel like when I finish, it really brings up that little kind of like accomplishments for me kind of stuff. So just doodling.
Wonderful. Aaron, and where are you in the world right now?
San Diego.
You're in San Diego. Great. Thank you. I love that. I mean, engaging in art practices and that place of engaging our imagination is really an essential part of our well-being. It's not just for children. Yeah. So, and I hope that you continue to engage in that.
Oh, definitely.
Awesome. Great. And then Anna.
Me is like going out for a walk every morning and just like listening to the birds and connecting with nature. That's very, very hopeful.
Yes, I love it. I love this, this aspect of connecting with nature. Something about bird songs and the wind going through the trees that really calms our nervous system, right? It's really quite powerful. And it's something that, if you know that that's something that anchors you into a sense of well-being and hope, to keep coming to that practice, because we need to be healthy, right? We need to have that sense of anchoring. Sergio.
Yeah, for me, it's reading, just disconnecting from the world, from all the things that we need to do, from all that huge list that pending is the task and all of that. It just gets 1 hour into another world of the book that calms me down a lot.
What are you reading now?
I'm with a story of a guy that stays on a draft for 438 days, surviving a lot alone on a small boat. It was a Mexican guy. 2012, I think it happened.
Wow. So you just really kind of go into the story of what this person was experiencing. So talk about building empathy, right?
Yeah, right now we are in the middle of the Pacific.
Wow. Incredible. Yeah, I reading and storytelling is such an important part of not only our development, but also attuning ourselves. So I think that's beautiful. And who's next? Who else would like to share? Thank you, Sergio.
I can go next. What it helps me is there's two things. The first it's just seeing my daughter, just like watching her, seeing her being her there, and also the sound of the waves in the beach. That really relaxes me.
I love that so much, and I hope that you can get to the sound of the waves often, and especially maybe even with your daughter, because then that would like amplify, right, that sense of anchoring. That's beautiful. I love that. And then who else would like to go next?
Yeah, I can go next. I was thinking and I was like nervous because I don't have a fancy activity to share. I don't know. It depends a lot on the mood, why I need to take a break. Sometimes I just need to sleep and do nothing, just nothing. Not reading, not phone, not nothing. I don't know. It depends a lot on why. But yeah, I spend time with my dogs. I have 2 dogs. I think it's something that I really don't. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really great response. I think the art of doing nothing is something that we as a society and as a culture struggle greatly with. I know it's hard for me to pause and do nothing. And in fact, I'm even reading a book on Rest is Resistance manifesto, which talks about sleeping more and resting more. Yeah. And the importance of that, especially in this effective, productive, efficient world we live in. The resting part is an essential part. And then being with your dogs, actually, research has shown that it stimulates the love hormone, oxytocin, when we pet our dogs. Yeah. So, I'm trying to convince my husband to get a dog, but I'm working a little bit on it.
10. You should have 10.
I know our daughter would really want a dog, and I know my husband would love a dog too. So thanks for reminding me about convincing you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and so who's next? Who has not gone? For the sake of time, please put your voice in the circle. Dr. Cardenas, you're on mute.
Dr. Cardenas, you're muted. Sorry.
Sorry, before I tell you what gives me the most hope, I do want to say that and remind you that our institution offers various programs in Spanish, practically all of them, except the full stack program. And we do have our professor who teaches in the bachelor's degree program and master's degree program in Spanish, Mayra Connected. I see her name anyway. So she's invited. If she wants to make a comment in Spanish, we can always translate. Most of us are bilingual.
Okay.
But having said that, I want to tell you that what really gives me very much hope is looking at the sky. Looking at the sky gives me the framework, not just of the globe, of where we are, but the framework of the universe, which is really our space. And the universe is really, the most incredible thing we have around. And what more hope than seeing that sky all the time there, practically unchanged. It has a cycle. There's a dynamic, that goes, forward every day, every month, every year, and it doesn't change. Yes, we do have climate change. We have a few problems in the planet, but in the universe, it is incredible, and we are only a very little, portion of that. So, what makes me reflect is that if that universe is there with all that complexity, that perfection, why can't we have hope for a better life and for more well-being and for the well-being of the rest of our community and our society? That's what gives me hope. But, I hope I could have more time to look at the sky, but that's what I secretly do when I need hope or when I need to reinforce my sense of hope, of hopefulness. So thank you for sharing that question.
I love that. I love that because I didn't know that about you, and that my heart smiles so much because I also think of that we also used to be a society that looked at the stars more and looked up at the sky more and wondered more, right? And I think that when you think about looking at the stars, it opens up the throat, the heart, and it makes you go into this place that really engages us into that place of sense of wonder. And I'm reminded, Dr. Cardenas, of those from before that used to use the stars to navigate, and it reminds me of the story that Sergio is reading in the Pacific, and then it's this sense of wonder is within us. We just have to remember, and I think something is so simple and accessible as reminding ourselves to look up at the sky can open up that heart, right? Because shame and guilt is this, and then when we're on the computer, it's this, a lot of this. But if we can stop and just kind of look up at the sky and open up our hearts, I think it shifts us a little bit into that place, and it's a really beautiful place of anchoring. Anybody else has Mayra, si quieres hablar un poquito y comunicar con nosotros sobre qué es lo que a ti te da esperanza. Y si no puedes salir en mute, no hay problema. Beatriz o Leticia, I encourage you to put your voice in, and also, if you can, turn on the video camera. Mm-hmm. And for the sake of time,
Yeah, and
But
I may say, this sense of hopefulness has to be reinforced continuously by each one of us, given the realities that we see around us. That phrase you said, suicide is the highest, is the highest cause, or the most important cause of death in the U.S. That is a chilling fact. And that is incredible. That is something that should not occur. We need more strength, and we need more hopefulness, more solidarity. So this is why your messages are so important.
Thank you.
bueno, lo voy a decir en español.
Sí.
¿Qué es lo que me da esperanza? Pues mi familia y el que estoy aquí a pesar de tener ciertas dificultades de salud.
Claro que sí. Y muchas gracias por tu courage, ¿verdad? Porque yo pienso que, it really takes courage to be able to be engaged and to share your heart. And I think that's telling to the safety that we create in the group. That's an important aspect of us being able to show up and share. And I think something to really remember here is that we are all going through something. Everybody's going through something. And if you can look at somebody and think, you know what, they might be going through something. And if I give them a little bit of presence or a smile or a pause, that might make a difference, a positive impact in their life. And I may never know that. And it's not really for us to have to know if we made a positive impact. It's always like icing on the cake, but that's not the point. Mm. You really never know the kind of positive impact you're having on others. And I think that when we talk about health, well-being, for ourselves, for our family, we all can relate. And we're all affected by it in some kind of way. Which is why I wanted to, and if there's anybody else who wants to share, Beatriz, if anybody else wants to kind of share here, this is why I wanted to complete this seminar today by seeing each other's faces, hearing each other's voices, and talking about the anchoring of hope. When we talk about these challenging things, we have to remember we can do hard things. And that place of anchoring and those practices will keep us showing up. And if we're reminded that everybody's going through something and we can all do hard things, and I can help attune another human being with my presence, my empathy, my compassion, and the quality in which I'm showing up, I think that we can really create cultural change into the mental stigma in our society. And we can foster more trusting groups and healthier work environments that feel very safe and courageous to face challenging things. And with that, if anybody has any questions about anything that I presented, now is the time to ask. All questions are welcome. Yes, Ana.
I don't really have a question, but just thinking of or referring back to the sky and how looking at the sky that doesn't change, although it may vary from day to day, gives us hope. I really like that image. Like when I go out in those morning walks, I do look at the sky, but today, especially after having listened to a podcast on AI and seeing that now GPT is suggesting you the prompts and just thinking how quickly this is evolving, I will keep that in mind to look at the sky as a reference that maybe things are speeding up really quickly among ourselves, but there's something that remains like untouchable and that can bring us peace and help us anchor despite like all this speed that we are facing and will be facing in the future. So thank you very much for that image. I really appreciate it, and it's going to be very, very helpful.
Anna, it's so important, right? So that when others speak, what is evoked in us, the images that are evoked in us and the message that lands for us is really an important part of hearing what others have to say. That's why it's so important for each of us to have courage around sharing our hearts with one another. Because you never know, right? Like you just said, oh my God, thank you, Dr. Cardenas, for that image, because now I'm going to be reminded that there are these untouchable places that will keep me anchored as a human being. And that's such an essential part to our well-being. And so if there's anybody else that also would like to share something that they learned or something that was, meaningful to them, or anything else that's up for you as we sort of begin our closure, we do have a couple more minutes. And I say we have a couple more quality minutes, right? We have time to be able to share anything else that came forward for you in this seminar, or something that's just up for you. It's welcome here in the space. Any questions, comments? Dr. Cardenas?
I do have.
Go ahead, Lydia. Better.
I just want to thank you, Caroline, because this workshop really helped me open up my mind, and also because my family right now is going through a certain situation that I'm pretty sure that I will know how to handle it right now. Just to mention it really quick, my sister is at the hospital right now going through like a deep depression and things. So I will know how to talk to her by this workshop. It really opened up my mind, It was like the perfect time, for this workshop. It just came. I'm really thankful with you.
Thank you. And we're going to be thinking about you and your sister and really holding a lot of love. For her and all of you to get through this together.
Thank you so much.
If I may just probably make a final comment. I think it is very important that we all reflect. That's another, again, message you are giving us. Let's reflect on who we are and what we do. We are all educators, and we are engaged in an educational activity with San Diego Global Knowledge University, which is an institution. It's not a person. We have students here in our group. We have faculty, we have staff. We're a family. SDGKU has been a family-owned university since it began. We are very proud of many things. We're the first online authorized school in the state, one of the first in the world. But above all, we provide global knowledge. We generate global knowledge and global skills in our programs that help people become more productive and better in society, better persons in society. And that should give us confidence that what we're doing right now as students or as faculty, or again as staff members of this institution, is something that will certainly make an impact eventually. One does not notice it, many times on a daily basis, but eventually one notices when we talk to someone that graduated and was successful, when we talk to someone that has more pride than other professionals in other professions. And I think we should reflect on the fact that we have an edge there. Just the fact that we're educators and students that are learning and acquiring knowledge. If we can continue this for life, students in particular, think about this, I think we will be very successful in avoiding, again, any kind of problem of stress and distress, or again, in our lives, which is always there to a certain degree, but we are better off simply because we are engaged in learning. Just engaging in learning in our lives is something that allows us to put aside the stress. And if I may just add, besides looking at the sky, when I am learning from others, that makes me very hopeful too. Thank you.
Beautiful. Well, I'm just honored to be part of this institution and to be part of all of here in this group with all of you, faculty, staff, and I'm grateful for Dr. Cardenas' vision from way back when, and for remaining consistent. And without his imagination, we couldn't have maybe been here and doing all of this. And also our imagination as well. We've somehow imagined all of this, and we really are creating a positive impact, in the lives of others, the students, who will then, that is a ripple effect. So it's like a pebble, in the lake or in the ocean, and that ripple effect that just keeps going. And I look forward to our quality and our attitudes around SDGKU 3.0, this new, accreditation we got going on. We did really great work. We have a lot to be proud of. And we're going to keep doing the great work. And I think it's just really, really important that we don't lose sight of that we're human, and that we can attune to one another, and to be supportive to one another in this meaningful work that we're doing. So thank you for having me. I'm honored again, and I look forward to our next seminar together.
Thank you very much. Let's give her a hand, please.
Thank you.
San Diego Global Knowledge University. Please join us for more informative videos on our social media sites and YouTube.